Assalamu alaikum, it's Khaliah here, and today we're going to discuss what are short sales. A lot of you are probably wondering because you hear a lot about these short sales, but you don't really know what it is and don't really know the process. Well, today we're going to discuss that. I'm just going to give a moment for some others to jump on, and then we'll go ahead and get started, inshallah. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. So, depending upon where you live, you probably come across a lot of short sales. And a short sale is basically a situation where the owner owes more on the house than what they can sell it for. So, for example, let's say an owner wants to sell their house for $100,000, but they owe $200,000, and let's say that market value of the house is only $100,000, so they can only get, no one's going to pay them more than that $100,000. So again, they want to sell it at $100,000, but they owe the bank $200,000. So technically, in order for them to be able to sell their house, they have to get an approval from their bank or their financial institution in order to be able to sell it for that $100,000. So that's the first step. So if you're meeting with different sellers, let's say, because, depending upon where you're located, there could still be a lot of people who are going or in a short sale or need to do a short sale in order to sell their house. So in a situation like that, if you meet with a seller and you find out that they owe more on the house than what they can sell it for, then what you'll need to do is you'll need to have that homeowner, the homeowner will have to be able to, can only sell the house through like an agent. So that's the first thing, is that if a homeowner decides that they want to sell their house and it's a short sale, then definitely they'll have to go through an agent to be able to sell that house. They'll have to have an agent market the house. They'll have to put the house on the MLS to show that they made an attempt to advertise it to the public. They'll need to have a listing agreement with an agent. And then also they'll need all their financial documents showing why they have a hardship and fill out the short sale documents with the bank. So short sales can be a process. Personally, I try to stay away from those situations if I can, and I try to just go with people who are not going into a short sale. But it's just something that can't be avoided, depending upon I guess the previous situation of the real estate market. There are still quite a few people who are going through short sales. So again, if you find the seller, they'll have to get their documents together. And then once they have everything together, they'll have to submit that to the bank in order to start the short sale process. So once they submit all their documents to the bank, then you as a buyer, you can come along and you can make an offer. Or first of all, and here's another key about these short sales, is that you cannot wholesale a short sale. So what happens is that you'll have to come along and do a contract with the owner to buy the house. You can do a contract with the owner to buy the house as a buyer. And so once you enter into an agreement and the contract is sent over to the bank, then the bank can review that contract and decide whether or not they're willing to accept it. So it's up to the bank. So even though the seller has accepted your offer at some price, like let's say, for instance, you offered $100,000, they owe $200,000, it's going to be up to the bank to decide whether or not they want to accept that $100,000, because they can come back and renegotiate, or they could even come back and ask the homeowner to hold like some type of non-secured note. So like let's say the homeowner owes $200,000, they could come back and want the homeowner to hold a note for $10,000 that's unsecured that they still need to make payments on. Or they may come back to you and say, okay, you know what, the house, the BPO, that's a broker price opinion, because what happens is that the bank, in order for them to make their decision, they also have an agent go out and assess the value. So it's not really an appraisal, an official appraisal. It's an agent that's going out and using their comps to decide the value of the property. So if the BPO comes in at, let's say, 150, then it's possible that the bank may come back to you and say, okay, you know what, the minimum we're willing to take for your offer is 125. and then basically you would have to rewrite your offer. You could decide to go at 125, or you could just walk away. Now, I just mentioned not too long ago that the bank is not going to allow you to wholesale the property, right? So in that situation, what you would have to do is you would have to do what's called a double closing, or buy the property in the name of an LLC, in order for you to be able to make your fee that you would normally make as a wholesaler. So in some other videos, we've talked more about what a double closing is, and also how to buy an LLC. But if you're working with an attorney, then those people can help you to be able to put together those type of documents, because basically a double close is where you have like two transactions. So you could have like one transaction to close on the property from that seller to you, and then you would have a second transaction, which would be you to your end buyer that you have, that you're selling to, but you would need the funds to close that transaction out. The second one would be if you were to buy in the name of an LLC, and so in that situation you would buy the property, and you would be like one of the managing members, and then once you buy the property in the LLC, you would technically just sell the LLC to your end buyer. And so, like I said, those type of things can be a little bit complicated, but if you have an attorney, the attorney should be able to help you out to navigate that. And typically, like if you're going after people who are behind on payments, like let's say if they're tax liens or default, like pre-foreclosure, things like that, you will come across a lot of people who could be in a short sale situation if they haven't made their payments. Let's say they haven't made their payments in like 5 years or something like that. Then more than likely those payments are still accumulating. And so in that situation, even though the market values have raised in that neighborhood, it's possible that people could still be behind, because let's say they had one of these negative arm loans, and so their arm jumped, and so they couldn't afford the payments anymore. So there could be a lot of people who are going through a short sale situation and need to be able to sell their house. Hi, Leah. How are you? We're here today talking about short sales. I just kind of went over basically what a short sale is and the process of a short sale, especially if you're working from a wholesaler standpoint. Do you have any questions about short sales in general? Oh, and also, too, one thing that I want to mention is the length of time to complete a foreclosure, because that can vary. Some banks, let's say, it could be 3 months. Some banks could be 6 months, 9 months. So short sales can be a lengthy process, and so that's definitely why, too, like if you're prospecting for leads, you definitely want to be building up your pipeline. You don't want to have all of your deals are short sales, and then you're waiting for all these deals to close that are 3, 6, and 9 months out. Okay, so Leah here, one of her questions is not necessarily about short sales. She's wondering, how do you look for people who want to sell? And so there's several ways to look for people who want to sell their property. So one way would be, if you were to go to the courthouse and find people in divorce, foreclosure, let's say they were in default, they're 90 days late. So those would be one way. Another way could be like putting up bandit signs, I buy houses. Let's see, what are some other ways? I'm kind of stuck here, I'm sorry. But there's plenty of ways to find people who want to sell. Another could be like driving for dollars, looking for vacant properties. Like let's say you're riding around, you're writing down addresses of vacant properties or properties that look not well taken care of. You also have people who have like code violations. Some people even prospect people who have like quitclaim deeds. Normally you can find those in the land records. And a quitclaim is typically like when somebody transfers ownership for little to no money very quickly. And so normally those people are trying to avoid something, and that's why they're filing like a quitclaim. So quitclaims, you could have like evictions, like people are going through landlord-tenant court. So there's plenty of ways to try to find people that want to sell. And one thing I suggest is once you find something, I would say, pick 1 or 2 of them and start to market to those people. You could either call them, knock on doors, send them letters, but just contact those people and see if they want to sell their property. And I would say choose about two different strategies. Hello? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm back. I think my internet connection went out. But what I was saying was that once you find, let's say one way works, one way doesn't